to do before he gets started is to actually go to the site, and I'm going to put it in chat. I'm going to say it a few times, and I'm going to put it in chat. But the site is Kahoot. That's KAHOOT.IT. Kahoot.it. So KHOOT.IT. That is the site, Kahoot.it. Or you can download the app. How I do it is I have my laptop up that's going to show the Kahoot game where all the questions will be, where you'll be able to see all the questions. But on my iPad, I will play the game. It's better if you have two different devices to play, or you just play it on your, download the app and play it on one device, but you'll have to go between the Zoom screen and Kahoot. If you haven't played before, it's going to be confusing. It's okay. We'll work with you. So you're going to go to Kahoot, which is KAHOOT as in Tom, .IT. Or you're going to download the Kahoot app, and that's going to be the first part. Franco's going to play the game with you, and then there's a presentation. We're going to recap from last night's discussion, and then we'll talk about where we go from here. And then there's a resolution that we want you all to be a part of, and we'll talk about that at the end. And then we're going to give you guys an opportunity to speak and tell us any questions you may have, or just conversation. So that is what we're going to do tonight, and that's what to expect. Again, welcome everybody, and I'm going to give it over to Franco.
Ooh, appreciate that. So if we can go ahead and switch the screen over to Kahoot so we can go ahead and get started.
I should have stopped sharing. It's not sharing anymore, is it?
Okay. All right. All right, so here you go. Here's the game pin, 5435892.
So if you
log in and put your name in.
Yes.
There you go. Let's see, Chad, MJB, P6.
Oh, y'all have played before. They've been here before.
We already know what the program is. We know what time it is. That's what I'm talking about.
Do their points start over, or they?
Nene, look at the screen. It's up on the screen. The pin is up on the screen. So you'll have to toggle back. It's 5435892.
So normally we do Kahoots.
It's
to do an assessment on what people know. We call it like a formative assessment. So it's okay if you don't know the answers, that's fine. It kind of gives you a glimpse into what we're going to talk about. So even if you don't know, it gives you an idea of what the conversation is going to be.
Do we get the winner? Did I get to win anything?
No.
Like
no.
Some money, a free trip?
No.
No, you just win. That's it. Bragging rights.
There you go, Evan. He said he's in it to win it. That's all he needs.
I need to display the entire standings from our game on Sunday. I was thinking about doing that so everyone can see where they placed.
I'm good. I know I was at the bottom somewhere.
Where's Michael Hicks at? Oh, there he is, because he really enjoyed this the last time. I'm nervous. All right, we only have 41 people in here. We have 18 players.
We can stop at 20. Yeah.
We got 20.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, we can go now. It's no problem. We can start now. Yeah.
I know, Hicks. I heard you. He kept saying, I'm coming. I'm coming.
I will go ahead and start.
Oh. On your mark. Get set. All right, here we go. Look at the screen for your questions.
Look at Zoom for the questions and your other device for the answers.
I didn't. What was the point of what?
Question should be at the top.
Oh, sorry.
It's all good.
Oh, I'm answering on my daggone laptop. I just told y'all what to do.
All of the above. Yeah. That's it.
And the winner is
Ramonda.
Cool. That's what's up. Paying
okay.
attention. See it.
All right. Okay.
True or false?
Okay, Franco, you got to give us time to
Maybe it may be some lag going on, so
Oh.
that may be the issue.
Look,
Okay.
if you don't know how to play, don't blame the host.
Right.
I got you, Marco. Franco, I got you.
So that may be a rhetorical question, but yes, it's about power. It's also about power.
Dang it, Evan. Look at Hicks.
What three groups worried about not being heard? What three groups worried about? Okay, see, I wrote it. I know.
I don't think anybody, with the exception of one person, is going to get this one.
I'm not going to get it. I can tell you this right now. I'm just going with my favorite color.
That works.
Oh my God. Okay.
Damn it.
Nah, that's good.
I'm going
to drop. That is good.
That's good data.
Mexicans, Cubans, and Puerto Ricans, they're worried about not being heard.
Yeah.
Because they're
see the presentation.
Okay. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Hey, which one was the right answer for that one?
Mexicans, Puerto Ricans, and Cubans.
I think it said my thing was wrong, and I picked that one.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Anyway, let's go.
How you gonna go on?
First of all,
which administration?
I know who that is. Got it. She said, first of all, no. You're not even getting the first. Just play the game. There's no first.
Trump sent Puerto Rico some paper towels. He threw it at him, too.
It's hard.
Yep, Nixon.
Correct.
Good job.
All right.
That's good.
Damn it. Okay.
Candace.
Back on the leaderboard.
Candace got
Hi, Chad. See you later. Nice knowing you.
You're on fire right now.
In what year did the Census Bureau director call Hispanic DC?
So
it's gonna be.
Who gave Hicks all the answers?
It's okay if you don't know. Most people will not know.
It's not.
You'll know by the time we get done with this.
That's exactly, Chad. You gotta. I quit. This game is bogus.
He said this is PhD crew.
These answers are bogus. This game is bogus. Franco, you're bogus.
It may seem bogus.
The first time, but
That's
what's
what we up against.
Oh, what's the first time? Oh, okay. Where I don't get this right. I'm pulling the plug on this whole entire session. You will not learn about this stuff tonight.
Got everybody. Let me skip. Okay. Yep.
Oh, okay.
1980.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Okay. Discussion's on. Discussion's on. Trish,
You
how
you
you
can
gonna be at the top?
you can just discount mine because it don't matter. I'm not even gonna answer the last one because who cares? I don't know why I'm playing for real.
Yeah, I know, because you did this in your questions.
Oh, it's just I'm just so used to doing it. Like, yeah, let's go.
You disqualified.
I am.
Yeah. You don't know.
Oh, who got that wrong?
This is why that designation is important. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started.
Y'all got a lot. Wait, who won?
Let's see who won. Let's go back.
What you mean? Let's go back. Let's see who won.
Let's go back. I'm ready to go ahead and get started.
What?
Evan, Candace. Don't see. It's really Candace and
It really
Really,
should be
Trish?
Candace.
I know it's Candace won,
Candace
and
won.
and then P6 came in third, and SC Evans. That's yeah. Y'all could disregard me.
Wow.
Good for you, Candace.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Trish.
Okay. Anyway.
Right. All right, cool. So congratulations to Candace. Trish, shout out to you for the information on this PowerPoint. I appreciate you. You made it very easy for me. So thank you for that. Go back here. All right, so we'll go ahead and get started. So the importance of classification. You know, you want to be clear, concise, and to the point. Get this done. This is important. So just a recap from what happened last night. So why the census is important overall, right? So the amount of funding your community receives, we talk about schools, talk about hospitals, fire departments, et cetera, that money from the federal level funneling down to the local level, that's important, and we need to be counted. And we need specificity when we're counted. In terms of community planning for the future, you know, new homes, businesses, that keyword at the bottom, infrastructure. When you talk about infrastructure, that's not even reparations. That's just us being citizens of this country. Lowndes County shouldn't have hookworms and water sitting on lawns. That shouldn't be happening right now. Sewage shouldn't be bubbling up from the ground. So when we talk about infrastructure, we're talking about things of that nature. And also pretty much how your government, how you represented in government, the House of Representative seats, you get an allocation based on the amount of people in that particular area. So all of that stuff is important. So I'm not going to read this. I just want people to kind of look at it for a moment, kind of take it in. Again, it's not about money. This is about power. We have to be unafraid to talk about power and how to get that power. This is not the only way, but this is one of the ways in which we can make our voices heard. We already know what the game plan is, what we need to do, but we have to be unafraid of talking about power. So when you talk about these three groups, Mexicans, Puerto Ricans, and Cubans, you have to think about it in terms of them having their own specific issues. So at first, before Hispanic became a name or a classification, these were the three largest groups within the Latin diaspora, right? So you had the Mexicans, the Puerto Ricans, and Cubans. They did not want to be lumped together, okay? So you had Mexicans who had their own situation in Texas and California in terms of Jim Crow. They were kind of catching a blowback from what we had going on. It wasn't ADOS Jim Crow, but they had some issues. Puerto Ricans, they were concerned with statehood and rights as citizens, so they wanted to be heard. And Cubans, they saw themselves on the level as white folks. They didn't see themselves as indistinguishable. They were seeing themselves as Anglo-American as well. And they also wanted to make demands on behalf of Cuba. So they saw themselves as distinct. They had their own game plan. They wanted to be their own separate group. That's how they saw the game. So nobody wanted to be meshed together. Sounds like somebody struggling for their rights today, ADOS. So what happened was in the 1960s, you had the Spanish surname count. So what they would do, the Census Bureau would take last names from Mexico City and San Juan phone books, and they were pretty much, if your name fell on that list, you will be counted as Spanish surname. So that's how you were counted on the census. And those forms that had that question on the census only went to Texas, California, and New Mexico, and Colorado. So as a result, only 10% of Hispanics were counted on the census. So you had this whole issue in terms of your last name. People couldn't understand what the question was referring to, who it was talking about. There was no specificity. So in the 1970s, the same issue occurred, right? So they asked the question on the census, are you of Spanish origin? And from there, you can write in what nation you were from. All right, so it was a failure in the sense that, again, people didn't understand who the question was for. Some people needed the question to be written in Spanish. Nobody knew exactly who they were referring to. It needed to be specific in terms of the group they wanted to address, right? And they also didn't understand how representation meant political power and how federal dollars were coming from the census. They had no idea, no concept. So they had to, get active. These people were upset, and rightfully so, right? So you had the Mexican American Legal Defense Education Fund, you had Aspira, you had other Puerto Rican groups. What they did, they went on a whole letter writing campaign, Wall Street Journal, New York Times, Washington Post, and they pretty much let them have it. Hey, you're not counting us accurately. We need to be counted as such. And that's based on Christina Mora. She's a sociologist professor at California, UC Berkeley. So there you have it. We want to be counted as separate people. So in 1972, we think about Richard Nixon, we think about Black capitalism, we're thinking about the stuff that he kind of fed us in terms of gilding the ghetto, using capitalism as a means to get us out of this situation. But on the other hand, you have him understanding their plight in terms of Mexican Americans and other Hispanics. He understood where they came from. He understood their issues. He heard them out. So on one end, he's telling us Black capitalism. And on the other end, he's talking to them about how they need to coalesce and make one distinct group. He's hearing them out. So he urged everybody from the Census Bureau to create a whole advisory board comprised of Mexicans and Puerto Ricans.
Yeah, and like this part was interesting to me because they appealed to him, and he, like you said, he really heard them out. He grew up in California, so he must have grown up around, some Mexicans, and so he actually sympathized with them and went to bat for them and helped them, which I found incredulous. But yeah, go on.
Right. So just kind of take a look for a moment. I got something in bold on this particular slide here. Just kind of think about it for a moment in terms of our story and our narrative. But some of the issues they had when they met up as a group, they wanted to figure out what would the name be? What would the designation be? Brown could be confused with Native Americans and South Asian Indians. So when you think about it, you think about Yvette Carnell in terms of the Crayola game. They understood that quite well. They didn't want to be brown. They don't want to be confused with Native Americans and other people. So we don't want to be called brown. They said that. They also thought about Latin America, right? I don't want to be called Latin American because it gives the impression that they're foreigners. They're not from America. They wanted to have the same story that we have, right? They fought in wars. They're patriotic. They contributed to the whole history of the United States. They didn't want to have their own story, so they piggybacked. that was the main thing. So they said, you know what, Latin America ain't gonna work. It sounds like we're not from here. Latino was too close to Latin America. So they didn't want to be seen as people invading the United States. Hispanic was only well loved by people within the Nixon and Ford administrations. Outside of that, a lot of Hispanics didn't like the term at that point. But a lot of people within the administrations, they liked it. So they went with it.
Yeah, and even thinking now how dynamic this is, they're moving away from Hispanic and going to Latinx,
Right.
Latino, Latina, Latinx. You are Spanish-speaking white people.
Right.
That's what I'm calling them.
Right.
But go ahead.
Absolutely, I agree. So in 1976 and 1977, to make this official, the U.S. Census Bureau director called for all of the Hispanic advocacy groups to meet in Washington. So you got the La Raza, you got the Legal Defense Fund, the Mexican American Legal Defense and Education Fund. All these groups came together to promote this term Hispanic. So they set up town halls, Miami, New York, LA, Chicago, wherever the demography was conducive. They set up this whole program to get the word out about how this term can change the game. They went on a whole PR campaign. They also contacted the media. Trish said something very powerful today. I'll let her chime in and say that. But in terms of Univision, they were called upon to run documentaries, run commercials, run a whole telethon about why it's so important for this designation to be recognized and where to find this designation on the form. So they just pretty much educated the Hispanic public about, hey, this is our time. This is what we need to do. 1960 and 1970 didn't quite work out for us, but in 1980, this is going to be the game changer, right? So this whole push, it created a greater number of Latinos being counted on the 1980 census. And I wanted Trish to kind of chime in and kind of give us that statement she gave me today that kind of made me think about this in a different perspective. Go ahead, Trish.
Okay, so yeah, they're trying to paint themselves as an underclass and poor and deprived, and compare their wealth to white people's wealth. And they are bottom caste like ADOS. But first of all, you just got here. Second of all, you have Univision. This was in the 70s. When did Univision start, for God's sake? Like, what do we have? And we've been here before they were here. We were here before a lot of other immigrants were here. We were here before a lot of white people were here. We have nada. So they got to go on a whole public speaking campaign. They held a telethon, and they had their celebrities come out and introduce the new form, the new census form, and they told everybody in their native tongue, this is the new census, this is the word Hispanic, this is what you're going to see on the census, this is you, fill it out, this means money. And that's how they got people to fill it out and got a better representation or a better count on the next census. But
Right.
It just galls me that they have the nerve to say they don't got no money.
Right. You got a whole media conglomerate.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's before BET. We already know the story with BET. That's another story. So again, back to her point, right? So the 1980 census, this designation helped them to create policy in the future, right? So they used these numbers they were able to gather under the banner of Hispanic and say, hey, look, this is our poverty, this is our education, this is what needs to be done about that poverty and education. They were able to get more money for Hispanic-owned media, i.e. Univision, right? They demanded to have Hispanic on birth certificates. They made sure that Georgia, Louisiana, Michigan to categorize Latinos as Hispanic and not white. When I read this article, they pushed back on the fact that they categorize themselves as white. They want to be categorized as Hispanic because they understand they have different stories and different backgrounds than white Americans. So they don't really want to be tied to anybody else. They want to anchor themselves in their story. by piggybacking off of others.
And
Again, go
can
ahead,
I?
Trish.
I'm sorry. I meant to bring this up. So not only did Richard Nixon help them, but he courted their vote. He actually took buses to different cities, major cities like Chicago, New York, Miami, Philadelphia, and to campaign in different areas and played different types of music. Like it was like mariachi on the southwest coast, and then what was it on this side? I forget. But on the east side of the United States, he played a different type. It might have been salsa or something. But he courted their vote. He did that before the Democrats did that. Like this man was very politically savvy. So I just wanted to mention that. But go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I appreciate that. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. How they went about, in terms of activism, acquiring that designation and using that designation as a means to grab some type of power. But again, narrative drives policy. Your story drives what you get in this country. And if we allow other people to take our story and piggyback on what we're doing, I mean, eventually they're gonna get our policy too. So we got to protect our story. We got to protect what we know and where we come from. So that's why that designation is important.
Yeah, and like we want to take their blueprint, like they've taken ours, and do the same thing that they've done, and then we're going to talk about that next. Thank you.
Cool. Appreciate you.
Right. Okay, so that was this part. So that's Franco's Kahoot game and presentation. Next, we're going to do a recap of last night's discussion. And I have to share my screen, so bear with me while I do that. I have to find all of that first. Where though? Where's it? Oh, where? Oh, not here. Share. Yeah, I have to talk myself through this though. That's what I'm doing. Can y'all see my screen, I hope? Yes, no?
Yes, we can say it. Yes, yes.
Okay, good. Okay. All righty. So yeah, so next we're gonna recap last night's discussion, and Shelly, you are up.
So much, Chris, Trish, and Franco. You all did an amazing job. So I'm going to quickly go through what we discussed on last night. All right. Okay, so we start off with the census from 1790 through 1840. And what we learned most about that was that our ancestors were undocumented as there was no notation of slave by name, age, sex, or origination appears. Hold on one second. In 1790 through 1950, the census takers determined the race of Americans they counted, sometimes taking into account how individuals were perceived in their community or using rules based on their share of Black blood. Okay. So in between the time of 1850 and 1860, we were labeled as slaves or non-white free persons on the census. So for these two censuses, slaves were enumerated on a separate schedule. The names of slaves went undocumented still, and the census takers were instructed to substitute numbers in place of the names on the slave schedules. Free Black Americans in 1850 through 60 censuses were grouped with other non-white persons, free persons. So moving along to 1870 through 1930, we were labeled as Black. As the first census after the Civil War, the 1870 census is the first to include formerly enslaved persons by name, along with the rest of the population. Most of the 1890 population census were destroyed by a fire in the Commerce Department building. in January 1921. It's known as the missing census. Okay, so 1940 through 1990, we were labeled as Black or Negro on the census. 1970 census was first to take place after the Civil Rights Movement ushered in the Immigration and Naturalization Act of 1965 that welcomed a significant number of immigrants than previously allowed. This category was no longer specific to descendants of U.S. slavery. The 1970 census was the first time Americans were allowed to fill out their own forms and select a race category for themselves. Okay, so 2010, we were labeled Black, Negro, and African American on the census. The 2000 census was the first time African American appeared, and respondents were allowed to pick more than one race for the first time. 2010 census was the last time Negro appeared. Okay, so the next section I'll say is the Negro derived from the Latin word nigger. The Spanish and Portuguese used the term Negro to refer to people they enslaved from the African continent. Other European enslavers, as the English, adopted the term for the same purpose. The term became widely used and accepted in the US until the Black Pride movement of the 1960s. Black was adopted by the masses to replace the term Negro. Colored was a term promoted by the NAACP as it was deemed less threatening than the term Black, which was associated with being militant, revolutionary, and empowering. Black was adopted by the masses to replace the term Negro. In an effort to combat the Black Pride movement, Jesse Jackson proposed replacing Black with African American. He said to be called African Americans, these were his exact words, to be called African Americans has cultural integrity. It puts us in proper historical context. Every ethnic group in this country has a reference to some land base, some historical cultural base. African Americans have hit that level of cultural maturity, which is pretty disturbing as as dressed up as it may sound, as if like we needed something else to attach to ourselves to be considered something, as if we were missing something, which we were not, so, and still aren't. So, in other words, to be a Black American is to lack cultural integrity and to be culturally immature. So it's not even about taking it personally, it's just kind of like insulting. So opposition to the African American label argued that the descendants of Africans brought to the United States have long since created a unique culture. The overwhelming majority of Black Americans are at least 6 or 7 generations culturally removed from Africa. Okay, so going to the invention of race. So, these particular topics, especially going into this is pretty loaded. So this, of course, is the first step of other projects that will need to be done to go and delve in deeper to these topics. So race is a political and social construct created as a classification of people with the purpose of giving power to white people and to legitimize the dominance of white people over non-white people. Race was invented as a legitimizing agent justifying slavery and racism. Okay. Redefining ethnicity. Ethnicity is defined federally as, this is the official definition of how they define it on a federal level. Whether a person is of Hispanic or Latino origin or not. The exclusivity of this definition of ethnicity harms ADOS. Thus, it must be redefined to be inclusive of other ethnicities. Not that we're trying to be else, but of course, just letting that be only ethnic background that is recognized, it erases so many other groups, and most importantly, ours. So that definitely needs to be changed. And they should have known it was going to be problematic when they made the decision anyways. So we argue that ethnicity should be defined by 4 shared elements: race, nationality, lineage, and culture. Combined, these 4 elements creates a unique identity for a person belonging to a specific group that shares biology, nationality, heritage, and cultural experiences such as language. So if you think about, you can see the little chart, you can see at the center there's ethnicity. So you see nationality. Our nationality is American. Our race is Black. Our lineage is ADOS. Our language is English. And so if you take those 4 categories, you build our ethnic background. So, and then you see on the other one, you can see where it goes and how we came up with it. So, which I think Noble did a really awesome job on it, because it's so true. And to see it just makes it even more real. All right. So American descendants of slavery need a designation. As noted throughout history, the U.S. has forced labels on ADOS and our ancestors. This labeling has been quite detrimental to us while benefiting the system that oppresses us. There are several things that must happen in order for ADOS to have our own designation. And I was sharing with the ladies earlier, and I've done it, I think, through our whole time of doing our research, is that we have to be very intentional and pretty much kind of have like a takeover type of mentality. Not that we don't recognize that other people may have needs and things of that nature, but if we don't take what's rightfully ours or take over what's rightfully ours, somebody else is going to be sitting in place speaking for us like they are right now. And so I think us as a collective and as individuals have to have that type of approach. Moving on, the federal definition of ethnicity will have to be redefined to be more inclusive to people of non-Spanish origins. ADOS must be assertive in our advocacy for our own ethnic designation, absolutely allowing no outside influences. I'll probably put that in caps. It's like majorly important. The census is at the heart of discussing an ADOS designation, so we must all complete our 2020 census. This will ensure we are counted accurately, just as other groups within the diaspora. So follow up with the census by contacting your elected officials to let them know how important having a designation is for you, your family, and our community. Having a designation specific to ADOS benefits not only ADOS, but benefits America as a whole in addressing its original sin of slavery and the accrued disadvantages that it grew from. And that's all I have for this slide.
Thank you. Okay. So next, here we're going to talk about where we go from here, right? Am I right? Am I right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yes, Trish, you're right.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, so that's Nobly. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm on mute because my background's echoing right now.
Okay, no problem. So do I have up the right slide?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay.
It's on you.
Oh, I'm next? Oh, yeah, I am next. Oh, hi, y'all. Okay, so look. Okay, so we've already talked about why it's important to fill out the census. Franco talked about it. We talked about it last night. This 2020 census the federal government has determined to give $1.5 trillion per year for the next 10 years to every state based on the census. So the representation that we get as far as dollars and state reps is determined by how we fill out the census, and that's why it's so important. It's important to us, and it's important to your family, because this is 10 years. So the initiative, the project that we're doing right now is not just for us, just for now. Like, yes, we want you to fill out the census. Yes, we want you to urge your family members to fill out the census. Yes. Mark yourself as Black American, African American, and then write in American descendant of slavery. And then contact your representatives and let them know that you want to have your own designation. But for the future, that's what we're doing this for. Like for the 2030 census, we want to make this official. So we have to push now. Like, we don't have President Nixon to back us. We don't have the director of the Census Bureau to back us. And we don't have La Raza and Univision. We got us. So we're gonna have to push this and push hard for the next 10 years, because this is for our progeny, not for us. So they don't have to go through this again. So that's basically what the census is about, and that's what this push is about. Okay, so Nobly, you're up next.
Hello, everyone. This is Nobly. Can you guys hear me good?
Yes.
Alrighty. We're gonna go into how did Hispanic become an ethnicity? The bill that birthed their designation was the House Bill 92, or House Resolution Bill 92, which was a joint resolution. It got bipartisan support, and the purpose of this bill was to pretty much secure that to ensure that there was data being collected specifically on Hispanics. And when they came from that resolution, they wrote the Public Law 94-311. And Trish, you can go to the next slide. And what that bill did was it identified that 12 million people self-identified as Hispanic. As Trish and Franco went over, they understood who was Hispanic, and because they filled out the census. So that's why it's important for us to fill out the census, because the information from 2020 we're going to use, and they're going to say, okay, this amount of people claimed the ADOS designation, so we need to have a designation on the 2030 census. That's what we're hoping for. And that's why we're pushing everyone to please fill out the census, and please ask your family members, ask your friends, your neighbors to fill out the census as well, and to put in ADOS, if they're ADOS. And what this bill did is that it recognized that Spanish-speaking persons contributed to enrich America's society and have served their nation well in time of war and peace. So it recognizes, again, Spanish-speaking people contribution to America. It acknowledges that Spanish-speaking persons have suffered racial, social, economic, and political discrimination and are denied the basic opportunities they deserve as American citizens, and which would enable them to begin to lift themselves up out of poverty they now endure. Sounds like
Nobly, it's just, this is mind-blowing to me, the fact that there is actual policy that states their condition and nothing similar for us. There is how could you, and it's so ironic because every time we try and assert our power, it's like, well, what about the Native Americans? What about the Hispanics? But you see these groups are going and they're getting the bag and they are not thinking about us. Because for
Yep.
you to write something like this and not include us, it is that like I said, that Black-Brown coalition never was, never will be. This is the heart and soul of why we are by ourselves and we only have us.
Yep. There's no mention of ADOS at all in this policy at all. It's not meant for us. It doesn't include us. It doesn't include the natives. It's very, very specific. And it's not only does it recognize their condition, but it acknowledges their contributions. And again, we don't have anything on record besides that BS apology for slavery. I think Bill Clinton did, that was supposed to recognize slavery, but we don't have a policy that recognizes what we've contributed and is attached to a tangible policy as you see here. And another thing, the reason why they needed a designation was to improve the evaluation of the economic and social status of Hispanics. And that, again, is important, that this is about collecting data. And what this law was saying, that for us to properly evaluate their economic and social status, they have to have their own designation. They have a right to their own ethnicity. It also acknowledges that resources can only occur when they have accurate data. The same thing that we've been arguing. And if we had a designation, we wouldn't necessarily need a study for reparations, because they would have been collecting this information on us since the very first census, the 1790 census, where we were just labeled slaves. You can go, Trish. All right, go back. This is the meat and potatoes of the resolution. You gotta go back.
Go back again?
Yep, go back again.
I hit a button and I don't know where I am.
Go back one more time. Nope, right there. This is the meat and potatoes of the resolution. And this breaks down what department they required to pretty much collect what information and why. And the Labor and Commerce Department had to collect that information to develop methods for improving and expanding the collection, analysis, and publication of unemployment data specific to Hispanics. All of this is specific to Hispanics, Spanish-speaking people only. The Commerce, Labor, Health, Education, and Welfare, and Agriculture Department are to collect, publish, and publish regularly statistics which indicate the social, health, and economic condition of Hispanics. The law requires the Commerce Department and the Office of Management and Budget to develop a government-wide program for the collection, analysis, and publication of Hispanic data only. It also requires the Commerce, and get this, in cooperation with appropriate federal, state, and local agencies, to immediately undertake a study. Understand, to immediately undertake a study to determine what steps would be necessary for developing credible estimates, of undercounts. And Trish was talking about that last night, that we are very much so undercounted. That she was saying that she believes that we are way over 14% of the population, and there's no way that we can even begin to understand how many of us it is until we get a designation and until we get accurate data. The Commerce Department is required to do data collection activities to assess the needs, concerns of the Spanish origin population, and that they're given full recognition through the use of Spanish language questionnaires, bilingual enumerators, and other such methods as deemed appropriate by the Secretary. And the Commerce Department must implement an affirmative action program within the Bureau of the Census for the employment of personnel of Spanish origin or descent, and shall submit a report to Congress within 1 year of enactment of this act on the progress of such program. And that's a lot. That's a lot of goodies that they got in this bill, just to go with their designation. And we have to understand that all of this is included with having a designation. It's not just about a label. By not having an ethnicity, we are locked out of all of these rights and all of these tangibles that the Hispanic population has. You can go. All right. How do we get an ADOS designation? And that's on Trish.
Me?
Yes.
Okay. So the resolution relating to the publication of economic and social statistics for American descendants of U.S. slavery. So whereas...
You want me to go through it?
You don't have to go through all of them. You could just sort of summarize it, because this is the actual resolution that the ADOS Orlando chapter has been working on. So you don't have to go through every point by point, but just to get the gist of why to recognize the reasons we need our own designation.
Shelley, it's on you.
Okay, let's see. All right,
Let me take it from here. Look, we've been done wrong. Won't anybody acknowledge that we've been done wrong? We need to get our elected officials on board, signing off, saying that they support our designation. And here's the resolution that we're going to give out to everybody so that you can take it to your elected officials, take it to nonprofits, take it to the ACLU, the NAACP, take it to anybody and everybody, and try and get them to sign on to this resolution so that we can push this up to the federal level. How'd I do?
You did great, and that's why we included you. All right, there we go. What she said. So we're going to be sending this out to everyone, and we wanted to ask you guys' permission to send it to you and to keep you up to date on what we're doing in the background, who we're talking to, and how it's going. And then if you could reach out to us as well. But we have your email addresses, but we want your permission to be able to send you information, if that's okay with y'all, because we're really we started working on this once we did the research, we're angry. So we just started working, and we'd love to update you and keep you involved. Okay. So wait, is that the last one? Oh, yeah. Okay. So, are you guys done? Do you have anything else? Because if not, I'm going to open it up for conversation.
I'm okay.
Oh, good.
I'm good.
All righty. Okay. So let me exit out of here. Stop sharing. And how do we open it up? Because I don't see that in here. Participant. Oh, okay.
People need to raise their hand. And if
Yes.
they raise their hand, then we'll know who to unmute.
Yeah, raise your hand and we'll unmute you.
Yeah, if you want to add to this discussion or if you have questions.
No? Anybody?
Okay, we got a few people. Okay, Lori. Let's get Lori. So let me unmute Lori. I think she's okay. Are you unmuted, Lori? Wait, I'm trying to, and it keeps clicking back over.
No, this is Lori from ADOS LA. Sorry, guys. I thought I was just answering a question of whether I wanted information sent. But just a great job on this presentation. It's very informational. Learned a lot today. And, I think that the plan that you guys have is to do what's already been done successfully is a winner. That's all.
Thanks, Lori. Okay, I'm going to Cherie Ahmad. I'm unmuting her.
Hello, everyone. Thank you again for this presentation. I had two questions. I had a question about the census deadline because I thought it was over in April, but you guys can, I guess, correct me on that. And I also had a question about, is there like an ongoing ADOS campaign that's going out to social media, Twitter, Instagram, Shade Room, populations of us that we need to inform of this, but that may not be as, ready to hear this message as we would like. So that was my questions, my two questions, the deadline, and is there a social media campaign going on? Thank you.
So to answer the first question, because of COVID, the census is still open. So you can actually, if you've gotten a mailer, you can mail it in, or you can go online, or you can also call them, but you can go to census.gov and fill out the form online or get the phone number or whatever, but it's census.gov and it is still open. I don't know when they're going to close it. I was supposed to be like a census taker, and they keep calling me every now and then and going, yeah, well, we haven't figured this out yet, so be on standby. So I'm thinking, why don't you just call people? Like, you're not going to be able to go to their house. So call them. But, and then to answer your second question, we don't really have that part figured out, but if you have any ideas or suggestions, we are open. Definitely.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right. Anyone else with comments or questions? Where is Chad Brown? Well, I know I saw Chad Brown. I know he has something to say. And Hicks, I know you have something to say too. So I'm going to Denisha. I'm going to unmute her.
Hi, this is Denisha Allen. I actually went to high school with Franco and McEachern and Powder Springs, so shout out to him for getting me connected on the call. So I'm calling you guys from Denver, Colorado. There's a very small Black population out here, and I didn't use the American descendant of slave terminology because some of us here are not descendants of slaves, but to your point, we've all been lumped in together. I guess my question is there an initiative to push this with the NAACP, some of our pre-existing allies and nonprofit organizations that are supposed to have the quote unquote Black interest in mind, where we would push in this initiative towards those and making sure that they have this on their agenda as they go and talk with lobbyists and congressmen and people that represent us in the political arena?
Okay, so as far as the NAACP goes, we haven't posed this to them yet. And I know in Atlanta, I don't know if we'll be able to even push this. So it really depends on your local NAACP, and the national, I don't know either, because they're such gatekeepers that it's hard to know where they stand on certain issues. And if they see this as something that goes against, frankly, white supremacy, it's not going to fly. I don't know if you were here last night, but it was Jesse Jackson that came up purportedly with the term African American, and the way he presented it was very condescending. But the NAACP, the Urban League, Jesse and Rainbow Push or whatever he had, were against using the term Black because it was radical, it was empowering, and they felt it was anti-white, and they didn't like it. They didn't like the uppity Negroes asserting our power.
I want to piggyback on what Trisha's saying, because earlier we said that we were going to follow the blueprint of the Hispanics. The ACLU played a huge role and them getting their designation. And so, one of the, if you can't go to your NAACP, if you're finding that your elected officials aren't really receptive to this, and, you're going to have to keep lobbying them, please reach out to ACLU and remind them of their role in helping Hispanics. And if nothing else, trying to get them on record as to if they're not going to help, why not? So
Yes.
I think we don't leave any stone unturned if you have a nonprofit that's willing to sign this designation, because it's important, and it doesn't have to start with elected officials or like NAACP or legacy organizations. It could start with your art cooperative. It could start with Black Lives Matter. Well, it's not going to happen at Black Lives Matter because they flat black. But but you know what I'm saying. It could be a cultural organization. Maybe your African American Historical Museum, or your genealogy society in your area. So just be creative in terms of finding people who can be allies in this push for our designation.
Yeah, if you can even get, like she was saying, get them on record as saying no. Like, we need to know. It's not like I'm not going to ask, but I just don't see, like, I know it's going to be an uphill climb, and I'm okay with that. I'll say that. So,
Yeah,
did
and
that
real
answer?
quick,
Go ahead.
real quick, just to piggyback on you too. And it's not just trying to push federally. You can engage your local and state officials. Unlike reparations, where we don't really care for local and state reparations type bills, with this, it's okay to have a local court ordinance or some type of state legislation for our designation. Because if states by states start recognizing our designation, it can only help us in the major push federally.
So maybe one of the things we can also do is have, once COVID is over, we can plan to have an ADOS event around the country where we all go to our state capitals on the same day and advocate for this issue. I know, Georgia, that will be hard because they're really weird and they're only in session for 60 days. But, it's something that we can consider doing, and having kind of like a national event where we all do it simultaneously on the same day, all with the same purpose, going to our state capitals to lobby for that designation. Just a thought.
Right. And I know what I was going to say. The reason I wanted the emails is because, like I said, we're working in the background and working with someone. And once I have a plan, it's going to be her plan. Once she has a plan and that we think can work, because we're going to have to work around some of these organizations, then I want to let you guys in so we can all get to moving. But don't hesitate. If you find an ally, just go for it. So I hope that answers the question. Okay, anybody else?
Let's see. We have one more person. Let's see. I'm going to unmute. Okay. Is it Tian? Tian?
It's Tiane.
Tiane, I apologize.
It's okay. Hi everybody. I just wanted to say that I appreciate y'all putting this together for us, because I really needed people I could relate to in terms of like lineage, because I barely could find that here in New York City. I stated yesterday, So yeah, I just wanted to connect with like other like Black people or Black Americans, ADOS, that can relate to the same thing, and I learned a lot today. So I appreciate y'all putting this together and the presentation and putting this information out, and I hope to like be connected to more things y'all do in the future, so I could be more involved in this.
Cool. Thank you. And I see Denisha posted a question, and chat or a statement. But yeah, we're gonna put this out. So Princess, where are you gonna post it? Like we're recording, so we're gonna post it somewhere. I don't know if she posted.
Yeah, we will upload the video, so we'll go to the ADOS Atlanta YouTube page. Feel free to join if you would like, or subscribe to the page, and then the Black American DOS Caucus website will post it, and then I think we will finalize the deck and the one pager and make that available on the Black American DOS Caucus website. And so you guys will be able to go and download it there. Someone had mentioned wanting a flyer for this Juneteenth in Nevada. And if you can just send me an email, I want to get a little bit more information about what you had in mind. Just send me an email at princess6noe@gmail.com, and I'll try and see what we have and what we can what you may be able to use. But I just wanted to thank you all for coming. This is a lot of information. I would encourage you to watch last night. I would encourage you to watch tonight. There's so much is dense with information. I am going to challenge you all to take that resolution, and if nothing else, obviously we want organizations to sign on to it, but it's wonderful educational tool for your family too. So as we try and get our family and start our ADOS family chapters, this could be a wonderful tool for doing that as well, and just continue to spread the word and to advocate on reparations, our own designation. And I think we felt as though we were like shooting in the dark until we found out how the Hispanics had already done this. So it's like, wait, there's no way you can tell us no. You can't tell us no when they have it. So I think it'll be interesting. I think now is the time to push for it, because so many people, I guess we can take advantage of white guilt or whatever. So many people are kind of making symbolic changes. Well, we want them to make something meaningful, a meaningful change for us. And this designation could be one. Again, we're still pushing for reparations, but it'll be, let's just set the right foundation for our fight for reparations. So I want to thank Franco. I want to thank Trish. I want to thank Nobly. I want to thank Shelly, because they started this probably about close to 2 months ago. And again, they put a tremendous amount of work into just condensing it and making it palatable for us so that we have a great foundation. So I applaud them and what they did, and it was a wonderful job. We have another event tomorrow at 7, and it's going to be a ceremony of sorts, a goodbye ceremony for the term POC, and it's called POC is a racial slur, and you have to register for that as well. But please come out and join us for that event. And then Saturday we're having a watch party, and I believe I got the title today from Kremlin, and I believe it's the history of slavery with Fannie Lou Hamer and someone else. So we still have some things going. And then outside of ADOS, with my Gwinnett NAACP chapter, Dr. Cosme is going to be speaking for our Sunday conversation on Sunday, and it'll be available on Facebook at NAACP Gwinnett. So you guys are welcome to join us there. And I know there are some other activities going on. So Lori, if you're still on, do you want to make an announcement about what else we have going on this week? I don't know all the particulars, but
yeah, we have a couple of podcasts. We have the Black Civics podcast, which is a joint podcast between ADOS New York, Tony Blount, and ADOS Sacramento, Chris Lodson. That is going to be on Friday, Juneteenth. And ADOS LA is debuting its podcast, Politics in Black, hosted by Chad Brown and Friday Jones. And it's going to be all about Juneteenth, its origins, its history. One of the things that we're excited about is we had a young man who reached out to us who said that one of his ancestors, relatives, was actually present when they read the Emancipation Proclamation.
Oh man.
So we're really excited about that. Yeah. So, you know, in LA, there's some other things going on, I'm sure locally, but I do know there's quite a few podcasts that maybe competing at different times. So maybe you might want to try to record one while you listen to the other. I think the Black Civics and our podcast is at the same time. But, you know, we want to try to support everybody. We're going to make the rounds ourselves.
Yeah. I mean, look, Latinos got Univision. They got, what's the other one? Hey, look, if we have choices and we have to record and then go watch something later, that's all good. That's all good.
Right. I'm going to set my computer to record the Black Civics podcast while I'm working on the production team for the ADOS LA podcast.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, thanks, Lori. Thank you. Does anyone else have any announcements? And then I'm going to turn it back over to your wonderful host. But this Princess Six, thank you so much for coming out. Join us and other ADOS family members for the events that we have planned throughout the week. And back to you, Trish. I'm sorry, Tian.
That's all I have to say.
Okay. Okay, back to you, Trish.
Okay, so Lori, somebody in chat was asking where to find these podcasts.
I don't know how much longer you're going to be on. Who is that? Because I don't know if you guys can close the meeting down while I try to. I know ours is on YouTube, and our YouTube is, I'm going to put that in the chat. Marcus, real quick, while I'm doing that, can you find Chris's for me? Real quick. YouTube, youtube.com.
Okay, so yeah, so while they're doing
there's
that,
ours, and that's Friday at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And it's on our Facebook page, Marcus. In the Facebook ADOS LA group. We'll try to find that real quick. Post it in there.
I posted that Eventbrite link for them. I don't know if that's the same one.
Say again?
I said I don't know if the Eventbrite event that they page that they have is if it's the same thing.
Yes, that is it. Thank you.
I posted it.
That is it. Thank you.
okay. All right. Well, I just wanted to again thank everybody for coming out and thank all of my wonderful co-hosts for all of their work and dedication. It's like Princess was saying, it is a lot of information. We tried to condense it and make it as simple as possible. And thank you for giving us permission to reach out to you. And as we gather more information, we'll keep you informed so you can stay up on this and include your families. That's important. Include the people around you. It's important for our progeny. And that's all I got. Thank you, guys.
Yes, thank everyone. And I also wanted to just again shout out to the ADOS Dallas and ADOS Atlanta, particularly for really helping out with bringing everything together, working collaboratively. And shout out to my ADOS Orlando family for helping with the research and the resolution.
Yeah, y'all did the bulk of the work, so shout out to you. For real. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, fam.